Oh, we really don't like goodbyes, do we? I mean, I could feel it myself, right? We get opened up, and it hurts a little bit. Whatever it is that we're saying goodbye to, whether it's a friend or a lover or a parent or our youth. So the invitation for all of us is always to explore how we can live into that more holily. How do we live into that pain and that fear from a place of wholeness and a place of holiness, where the truth of who we are has room to make itself known? I call it ending well as a spiritual practice. And I found this quote, which I thought really sort of sums up how our culture struggles with endings and goodbyes. Never say goodbye, because saying goodbye means going away, and going away means forgetting. It's from Peter Pan, the little boy who never wanted to grow up. And there is something about that understanding of goodbye that is like our small child self, right? I don't want to say goodbye, because if I say goodbye, then it means that something's gone forever. It's gone, it's lost. I will forget, they will forget. The world will forget, right? However that lives in us. And so this practice of ending well is an invitation for us to shift this understanding of what it means to say goodbye, to allow endings to live in us in a new and different and more powerful way. Because what happens all too often is that because we're afraid of saying goodbye, we lock our heart up. We wall it off. We've had an experience of pain, we've had an experience of loss, and in that experience we decide, oh no, never again. I don't ever want to feel this way again, ever. Does it work? I mean, we do all of this. We lock ourselves up, we wall ourselves off, and then do we still feel pain? Do we still get touched in ways that deeply and profoundly move us, that hurt? And the struggle of locking ourselves up like this is that it also means that we're not getting touched by love. We're not getting touched by grace. We're not getting touched by another person's joy, because it's hidden behind this wall that is of our own making. So we get caught in these cycles. Anybody in here ever have something that ended, and then all of a sudden you find yourself right back in a situation where you're like, and here I go again? The same dynamic, right? Show of hands. Who in here has experienced that? Here I go again, yeah. Oh, the face has changed, the name has changed, the situation may feel a little bit different, but it's exactly the same. I find myself right back in that same old pattern. When that happens to us all, it's an invitation for us to realize that we didn't heal something. That something in that process of ending did not get healed within us. And the divinity that we are, in the wisdom that we are, is giving us another shot at it. Right? Is giving us another opportunity to heal that which is trying to be healed. And let me tell you, it doesn't feel good when you're in it, right? But that is truly your divinity supporting your evolution and growth. Because we call it a spiritual bypass, which means that instead of actually being truly present with the tears and the pain and the loss and the uncomfortable, instead of actually taking responsibility, being able to respond, that's what responsible means, right? Able to respond, instead of actually activating that ability within us to respond in new and different ways, we are sort of putting our blinders on. We're not looking at it fully. We're just walking away, maybe, because it feels good to just up and walk away. But inside, we actually haven't walked away. We keep playing it over and over and over. Anybody in here do that? People that you haven't been in touch with for decades, do you still live with them? Are they still in you? Are they still alive in you somehow? That is where this healing process is being called forth within us. So how do we break that cycle? Well, we repeat it until we have repaired it within us. Until we have done the healing work, we will find ourselves coming back to the same situation, the same types of energy coming at us, the same types of situations happening to us, the same kinds of people showing up in our life, making, guess what? The same sorts of demands. Because until we heal it, until we do that work, it's just going to keep coming back around again and again and again, not to torture you. It really isn't to torture you. It is your greatest good, continually giving you another opportunity to see anew, giving you another opportunity to change yourself at core. It feels like torture sometimes, though, right? So this is what the practice of ending well is. So I became an expert in this practice through a relationship that fell apart very badly, ugly, like as ugly as you could imagine a relationship falling apart, it did. And then moving into ministry, I think I had some healing work I wanted to do. And then I actually closed a Unity. I was the minister at Unity of Berkeley, and I knew, and the community knew, that when I was hired, it was either to hospice or to rebirth. And it became very clear to all of us that it was to hospice. And I can tell you that that was one of the most painful experiences that I have ever walked through. And I can also tell you that it was one of the most powerful, the most loving, the most growth that I have ever experienced in my entire life. I have never experienced something like that where an entire community came together and said, yes, we want to end this well. Yes, we want to end this cycle. Yes, we want to create something new for each of us individually and for this world collectively. And we did that. We stepped out and we walked through some very, very, very uncomfortable spaces within ourselves and between ourselves. Because you can't do this work in a vacuum. What happens, the invitation in this work, is that instead of caging your heart, isn't that a great image? I love that image. Instead of caging our heart up, we keep choosing over and over and over again to open ourselves. To open ourselves. And it goes against every single sense of self-preservation that you may have. But the choice to consciously choose, I am going to open into this pain. I am going to open into how uncomfortable this feels. I am going to open into the space where I can really listen to what this person is trying to tell me. Even if I don't agree with it, I am still going to open so that I am truly listening. And in that process, we are changed. We are changed at core. But we need to be okay sitting where we are. So this teaching, which I love, don't get me wrong, this teaching has a shadow aspect to it. Because this teaching is so focused on positive thinking. This teaching is so focused on what we are becoming that there is this space where we can just overlook where we actually are. And the fact that it kind of hurts a little. And the fact that maybe I'm a little uncomfortable about something. Or the fact that I'm feeling anxious about this or that, or, right? We want to just sort of overlook it, and we sort of throw spiritual, oh, it's all good. All right, my favorite joke is when people say, oh, it's all good, what they really mean is it's all going to hell. Right? Everything's falling apart around me. That's what we really mean when we say that. Can we actually have the permission to say that? My life's really hard right now. I'm going to say it. My life's really hard right now. I am in an ending. And it asks something of me. And I know that ultimately, so here's where spiritual truth does come in. I know that ultimately, I will be larger. I will be stronger. I will be a bigger container of love. But right now, it's not comfortable to be where I am. So what do I practice? You know, we always say, I preach what I need to hear, right? So what I'm inviting myself to practice, and you, is that as we stand on the precipice of this, something is ending. Is everybody in here have something ending? Am I the only one who's in the middle of an ending? Okay. So something is ending, whatever that is for you. And in that ending, the invitation is for you to be present, truly present. Present to who you are, present to what you're feeling, present to the cry, present to the anxiety, present to all of it. Because if you're not actually present to it, you cannot heal it. All it does is continue to grow if you don't pay attention to what is actually going on within you. And as you pay attention to what's going on within you, you need to be compassionate. You need to be compassionate with yourself, and not just with yourself, because endings usually mean that there's some sort of interaction going on with you and the world and other people, and you need to be compassionate for them. None of us behave well when we are in the midst of an ending. None of us do. We get reactive, we get scared, we get... So can we be compassionate, not just for ourselves when we're anxious and scared and not showing up in our shiniest form, but can we also be compassionate for each other? And then the last piece is, for me, the hardest piece, big surprise. Patience. We have to be patience itself. Viola, patience itself, sitting on a monument, right? That is who we are called to be. Sitting and being patient as we allow whatever is arising within us to speak to us, because there's wisdom in our pain. There's wisdom in our anxiety. I have gotten good enough with my anxiety that the minute I sense it and I feel it, I know where it lives in my body now. And as it arises within me, I'll turn to my wife and I'll say, honey, I got that thing in my stomach. And she'll look at me and she'll go, what is it? What are you anxious about? I'll be like, I don't know. I don't have the language for it yet. But I do know that something is not in alignment. I do know that something is asking for attention. Something is asking for me to step into myself in a new and larger way. And it begins first by being present to it, and then being patient as it chooses to speak in its own time, in its own way, knowing that we have that larger container of love. And that brings me to the next step. We can't do the forgiveness if we're not actually being present and we're not actually being compassionate. Can you feel that? The forgiveness piece doesn't happen if we don't have those other energetics lined up. But once we start showing up as compassion for ourselves and for others, the next step forward in that is forgiveness. Forgiveness for ourselves, most importantly, because we're usually the ones who are carrying it around. I love the chains, right? We're the ones carrying it around. And then forgiveness for others, however that looks for you. But people will say to you, oh, you just need to let it go. That's easier said than done. But this process of ending well is how we learn to let things go, really let them go. Not just say I'm letting it go, and then 5 years later it rises up to meet us again. But truly being transformed. So I love this next picture because I love this idea that ending well allows us to take the things that we literally think are tattooed into us, that we literally think are part of our identity, that we literally understand like, oh, I am that. If I am not that, I am nothing, right? All those places we go within ourselves. What if we let them go? What if they literally lifted off our skin? That's the invitation that Ending Well is offering to all of us, this practice. It's a practice of allowing ourselves to be made new. But that can only happen if we first acknowledge that we are tattooed. We are tattooed with our life's experiences. We are tattooed with our losses. We are tattooed with our joys. When we end something well, we are allowing it to lift away. And in that moment, infinite potential is truly who we are. We say that here in Unity all the time. You are infinite potential. It's in that moment that it actually happens within us and as us and for us. And then we get to break the cycle. Then all of a sudden we're not caught in that same story again and again and again and again. Then all of a sudden we're in a new story. And that's its own talk. That's coming up, right? That's its own talk. But the potential is there when we're willing to step into ending something well. And let me be clear, ending well doesn't mean it all turns out the way you want it to turn out. And ending well doesn't even mean that, like, even if, let's say it's a relationship and you end it and you walk away, that you're like on good terms. Doesn't even mean that. It means that within yourself, you have fully aligned with your understanding of who you truly are, that you have taken on what is yours to grow into, what is yours to forgive yourself for, what is yours to step into in this next iteration of yourself. That's what ending well means. So, you guys know how much I love Winnie the Pooh. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. How lucky I am that makes saying goodbye so hard. How many of us actually look at it that way? That the harder the goodbye is, the more blessed we are. The more blessed we are. That's an amazing thing. Can you feel how that places everything in a different container? So between Peter Pan and Winnie the Pooh, I'm personally going with Winnie the Pooh. And then that leaves us in gratitude. And gratitude for what is right now. I have shared, and I will continue to share, that I've had moments in my life where I was in so much pain, physical pain, broke my back, physical pain, could not move, could not barely breathe, right, without being in pain. Paralyzed pain. And I would lie there in my bed, and I would notice that I was breathing. And I would be so grateful for it. Painful as it was, I was breathing. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes that's the only thing that we can truly be grateful for. But there is always something. Even in the midst of the most upheaval, even in the midst of the ending being that your entire world and understanding of it is blowing up around you, there is something right now that you can be grateful for. Even if it's just that you were so lucky to have something in your life that makes saying goodbye so hard. You can be grateful for that. So this is the practice of ending well. And it's not easy work. I think it's some of the most powerful work ever, but it is transformational. It is healing. It is ultimately, people who have taken the shadow class with me know that as you come out of that darkness, the light that you feel, the lightness that you feel, this work is the same way. Because when you come out on the other side, you are literally transformed. So we're going to do some of this work in my class, Making the Most of Change. We're going to be looking at how do we end things? How do we navigate that? How do we move through that into what we are becoming? That's part of what we're going to be looking at together as a group, because you know what? Your stories of your endings matter. They matter to me. They matter to each of us. They have their own medicine. They have their own healing. So let's take a breath together. I'm going to invite Misa to come on up as we step into our time of meditation. And whatever it is that got stirred up for you, whatever it is that came into your heart, because we like to try to do that in unity. We like to try to quiet the mind and let the heart speak the wisdom that is there, right there. I'm just going to invite you into this space as we try to let go, right? Just loosen just a little bit, whatever it is that you might be holding on to.